Most people play the game of making money completely backwards, and the result of that is catastrophic. Financially, you're going to spend a lot of unnecessary money, or at the very least, it's going to prevent you from making money. From a time standpoint, you're going to waste months or even years. And most importantly, it's going to shoot your confidence. You're going to start to think that you can't do this because things you bring to the world keep falling flat. But in reality, it's just that nobody ever taught you the right way because it's pretty counterintuitive. And I'm speaking here from experience. A few years ago, I tried to bring an offer to market. I spent 3 months building it out and more than 50 grand. And when I launched it, it fell totally flat. So I want to try and save you that pain. Most people do what I did. They have an idea and they start building out that idea. They go and they buy the website domain and start building out a website and building a course or all the videos that go with it, taking pictures, all of these things. And then they launch. And when they launch, it's crickets. And the reason that happens is that it is incredibly difficult to predict the desires of the market. And even if you do have something that people want, you probably aren't speaking it in the right language. There are certain ways to articulate things that resonate with people and other ways that do not. And we need to learn what that language is. The problem with doing it that way, obviously, is that it is a huge waste of time and money. And all of this can be avoided if you flip your mindset out of scale. So many people worry about scale too soon. They worry about working with hundreds or thousands of people when they haven't even worked with their first 10. And when you start to think about business as one-to-one, an individual to another individual, everything changes. And that's the reality of business. Money is exchanged from me to you. It is an individual game at the beginning. And that's why it is so important to show up and be human, to be real, because people buy from people that they like and trust. And so it's building that trust through connection that is the first step in the process. Not building the assets, not building the website, not building the program. All of that goes out the window. And instead, we just start talking about the change that we want to see in the world, how we can help people, problems that we've identified. And when we do that, people will start to engage with us and we can have conversations and we can develop connection, not through an asset that you create, not through a lead magnet, but through my heart, through hearing and feeling who I am. So what we want to do before we create anything other than maybe some communication through social media, be that Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, wherever. Or you don't even have to do it online. You can also just start showing up in places and having conversations with people, getting into rooms of people that are interested in the same world that you are interested in. And when you do that, then the next step is to start having calls, start talking to people, start having coffee conversations with people. The more conversations you have in the beginning, the better, so that you can understand how people are interacting with your material, the language that they're using. And my advice is for the first 10 people, you should have a bespoke offer for each of those particular individuals. So instead of, I have this program that I'm going to slide you into, it's again going back to being human. Let me understand what is your problem right now, and keep asking questions until you really understand at a deep level with clarity what the problem is. You're like a doctor with the white coat on diagnosing. Then once you understand the problem, you understand where this person wants to go. What's the outcome that they want? And if you can see the problem clearly, you have the skill set to get them to that outcome, then you offer them how to do that. And you just tell them, hey, I hear this is where you are. I hear this is where you want to go. if to get there, I think you need to do X, Y, and Z. This is kind of what that would look like. This is about how long it would take. This is how much it would cost. And they're either going to say yes or they're going to say no. And that conversation is different for every person. However, there will be commonalities. And so as you're thinking about your idea, instead of building out specifics, instead of building assets, we want to start to think in terms of pillars or buckets. Common areas that you identify that you see people get stuck, so that you can speak into those areas and you kind of have a solution in your back pocket. Now, that said, that solution will vary in its application. And that's why you as a human are so valuable. Now, once you have a small audience, and it does not need to be a big audience. I made $98,000 with less than 3,000 subscribers. So you just need to have some people starting to pay attention to you. And in a second, I'm going to get into some numbers of what that might look like. But more importantly than the audience is once you start to develop some trust, the next step from there is start to develop the ability to set appointments. That is a skill. I'm not going to get into it right now, but essentially you're looking for people that are engaging with you that you think you can help intuitively. And when you find that person, you just offer to have a conversation. And it is not salesy. You need to really and truly be curious. You really want to know about that person and understand if you can help. Again, it goes back to being human. People can feel your heart. They can feel the energy if you're desperate, if you're reaching, if you are treating them like a number. Like, people feel that stuff. So from a numbers standpoint, I want you to assume, and this is just my numbers. This is not something that I'm pulling from outside. So take that with a grain of salt. Assume that between 1% and 5% of your audience early on, that number changes later on down the line, will book a call with you. In other words, if you've got 100 people paying attention to you, you will have between 1 and 5 calls. And I know that that does not seem like very much, but follow with me here because it is plenty to make that $20,000 that I promised you. So if you have those 1 to 5 calls, let's say that you end up with 5, I want you to assume about a 20% close rate. So about 20% of people that you get on these calls with are going to say yes to the thing that you want to do with them. Now, this thing, my recommendation, especially in this early phase, because you are trying to understand what people's problems are on a deep level, you're trying to find the right language, and that takes time, that takes depth. So I really recommend that you offer to do deep work with these people over longer periods of time, maybe like a 3, 6, 12-month time frame, where you can offer your support, you can offer your guidance. And I think a reasonable price is anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 early on in this process to work with somebody for a 6 to 12-month period of time. So let's say that you choose $3K for your offer. Let's say it's $3K for 12 months. Well, if you have 7 sales, that's your $20,000. Now let's extrapolate that out. 7 sales, if we're closing 20%, that's 35 calls. 35 calls, if we look back to that 1 to 5%, is about 1,000 person audience. So once you have 1,000 person audience, you just made $21,000. It's math. So that's the road. Now let's think about YouTube monetization, which is what a lot of people want to do. You don't get monetized until you get to an audience of 1,000. So you get 1,000, you get the, 4,000 watch hours, you get monetized. Now, on 1,000 person audience, like to get 1 million views is like $1,000, right? So like my check when I first got monetized from YouTube was like 40 bucks. So if you're thinking that that's how you're gonna make the money, eventually, sure. But you have to earn the insights. So again, starting without scale for those first 10 or so people, Then with those insights, then we have new language. Then I can turn this into a bit of a program. Then I can systemize things. Then I can think bigger. But if we start to think bigger first, it's a recipe for disaster. So I hope this was helpful. I promise you it works. If you have questions about it, let me know in the comments. Also, I've got a free community on Skool. I talk about business. I also talk about the energetics underlying business. That's what really changed my world, is when I started to see why things were happening on a deep, deep level, on a soul level. So I also use and talk about a system called the Gene Keys in that group. Alternatively, I go deep with people, just like I suggested that you do. So if that's something that piques your interest, I'll put the link in the description and we can have a conversation. That said, I'm relatively selective with who I'm working with. So there's some questions that we got to answer to make sure that it aligns. So I'd love to see you in one of those two places. Thanks for being here. Till next time.